Well, welcome back to the Writers Bloc Podcast, everyone. It's so good to see you all here post Thanksgiving and so wonderful to have Ann Kroeker with us today. She and I have just been chatting like old friends before we hit record, and it's been great to get to know her and put name and face together finally. So welcome, Ann. We're so glad to have you.
Thank you. It's an honor to be here.
Yeah, well, tell us a little bit about yourself, your writing, where you live, all of those important details.
Oh, thanks for asking. Well, I live in the American Midwest, and at the time of this recording, we got an overnight dump of snow on the ground, one of the first
Wow.
snows of the season. So that's what we are contending with. But when it comes to my writing, you did ask about that, right? You wanted to
Yes,
know.
I did. We are curious about
Not the
that.
snow. Well, I come from this literary family. My two journalists for parents, a very talented creative writer for my brother, and so I was always the one who wasn't the writer. So I had that identity crisis I had to deal with, and so I think my journey as a writer is much like what we all have to get to this moment where we see ourselves as writers. Like I see myself as a writer. I'm thinking of myself and my identity is partly writer. And it
Yeah.
took me a long time to get there. I had ups and downs trying different things. In college, I tried different majors. And in the end, I did major in English with a creative writing emphasis because I did find my way in, and it was through poetry. I never
Interesting.
imagined it would be. I'm terrible at form poetry, but free verse was popular at the time, and I just found my way in. That was the thing that kind of broke me open because I was able to explore hard things, and I was able to do it slant, to borrow from Emily Dickinson.
Yeah.
And I think that entry point also removed, I wasn't a journalist. I wasn't a creative nonfiction like my brother who went into ad copy to be an advertising executive. So I had my own little thing and yet still a writer. You know, I was a poet. But from that, once I graduated and went into the real world and had to think of what will I do as a writer, then I'm still a writer. I found ways in. I started a freelance writing business. I started editing. And then eventually, and we're talking a long stretch of time here, eventually I was on an editorial team where my mentor there said, you know what? When you edit people, you edit like a writing coach. I think you're a coach. And I said, well, what's a writing coach? And she said, go figure it out. And so I looked at the few that were out there at the time, and there weren't very many. But when I read their websites and their description of what they offered, I thought, I think she's right. I think I'm probably a better coach than editor, even though I really enjoyed editing and I think I was good. But there are people who are better at editing.
Mhm.
And so I ended up tumbling into this new role. And again, now it's been many, many, many years at this point. But that now has been this chance to live vicariously through other writers. So I had my own big run where I'm strictly thinking of myself as a writer, then a writer and an editor, then a coach. And now I get to see all these other writers rise up and bloom. And it's just been an absolute joy. I love the stage that I'm at now. But I do still write because any of us who are running running a writing business, even if it's tiny, if we're showing up on social media, that's part of us showing up there with our words. So everything from social media to blog posts, articles, things we pitch to other people, we're writing. So even though I'm coaching writers, I too am writing.
I love the progression of your story. And I think it's really great to know like that identity aspect that you talked about. Do you feel that you were drawn more to the writing coaching because maybe there was that interpersonal aspect to the work that you're doing versus kind of being more isolated and alone in the work of writing? Was that part of the appeal to you that you liked being with people and working with people more?
Yeah, I mean, maybe a little of both. So I've been at this long enough that I've been pre-internet writer and then with internet and then with social media, like much more
All the
actively interacting,
stages, yeah.
blogging. When blogging was in its heyday, I was blog early. I had to explain what a blog was. That's how long I've been blogging. And so when things became so immediate, the immediacy of it, like you could post a blog post and it would be live, like the whole world could read it. That was crazy. That was so
Yeah.
crazy. And then when social media became even more immediate, like I can open up my phone like interact with people, like what they like what they wrote and interact with them. That just seemed amazing. So I think you might be onto something. Maybe it is that I like the connection part, but then to be able to pass on all the things that I have gained, like I have all these decades of experience with everything from poetry to freelance writing to short form, long form, mostly nonfiction. Just I don't know how many novelists you have here, but I usually focus on nonfiction, supporting nonfiction, because that's my personal experience as well. That like to be able to pivot and take all of those lessons, leverage all those lessons, and pour them in anything I have, and all my ongoing research, because I always like to stay on top of things, and just bring it all. I bring it all to my clients. So I don't know. Maybe it's partly people, partly giving back. Because I don't want people to feel like I had stuck moments where I didn't have the information I needed. I didn't know what to do next. I didn't have the template or the knowledge or the tech. And so now I love being able to be supporting others.
To help people through those pivoting moments.
Speed it along. Get closer to your goals faster.
And it feels so good to help somebody in that place and to be like, oh, I know what you're going through. I've been there. This is what helped me. Yeah. I mean,
you're doing it. You do it right here. Yeah.
All of that just feels really good. I think that's really neat. I also really resonated with what you said about like you had this kind of legacy of writers around you. I did too. My mom is a twice published traditional author, and so I was like, that's her thing. Like, and my thing now doesn't look anything like what it did for her, but it's kind of neat how the Lord weaves us into just whatever that little niche of writing becomes for you. It seems like that was your experience as well, where you kind of ended up not where you thought you were going to start, or where you did start, starting with poetry, ending in, this book coach podcast role. So it's kind of fun. It's just fun to see where you end up.
Totally. My nonfiction books were in the Christian space, and that was not of interest to anybody in my family. And so they couldn't really relate to it, but they were really impressed. Like, wow, she's got a book and another book. Yeah. And so, we have to find our own way. I think that's a great way to frame it, that it can be unexpected. Like we can make a plan and go toward that plan, but then being open to serendipity or surprise or just something being a little like a winsome opportunity you never would have anticipated. And then you just go down that road, and next thing you know, you have something. It's
kind of like writing, right? Because it's like sometimes you don't know where your character is going to end up. we're the character sometimes. We don't always write our own stories, and
that's a great point.
Turns happen. So
yes, in fiction and in nonfiction, you're right. You can set out with one idea. That's where that plotter and pantser come along, or the one in the middle of the pantser. But the idea that some of us start one way, like maybe you have it all plotted out, and you still let yourself go by the seat of your pants at times to let them take the lead. Yeah, I like that analogy. That's a good one.
Well, speaking of kind of not always ending up where you begin, or, things evolving over time, the topic of today's interview is about, is your idea book worthy? And so we're kind of talking about some of those questions that maybe you need to be asking yourself in that process. So tell us a little bit about why this topic in particular is of interest to you, and maybe like how you've seen writers kind of wrestle through how to make that determination, like, yes, this is worth pursuing, this is worth digging into a little bit more.
So yes, is an idea book worthy? I mean, it's kind of an interesting way to frame it and to phrase it, but people come to me with this question. This is why people often come for coaching, and they want to know, hey, I've got an idea, what do I do with it? What do I need to do to move forward with this? And there are different ways to begin this process. And I'm going to focus on nonfiction. So sorry if you're a novelist, because you probably do have a slightly different process. But there's one thing I want to say up front that would be true for both, which is if you feel called to write a book, write a book. Write the book, if only for yourself or for a legacy project, to have there for the future, for your offspring, for your loved ones, for your friends. I mean, like, write the book if you feel called to write the book. Okay, so I just want to say that.
Good word, yes.
But also, I'm assuming that some of you are wondering, is it book worthy for readers? Like, is this worthy of being on the bookshelf at my library or in my library, or I'm sorry, yeah, the library bookshelf, bookstore bookshelf. Is it worthy of the paper on which it was printed? Is it worthy of all that? And so that's a very particular question. And if we back up and we start with your idea, we've got to start there, because any book that is going to be worth a reader's time, and therefore the decision maker, if you're going the traditional path, for example, an agent's going to be thinking like on behalf of the reader, the publishing house is going to be thinking on behalf of the reader, is like you have to have an idea that's going to be transformative for the reader. So we have to start there. It doesn't matter how big your platform is. If you don't have a good, solid idea, you don't have a book idea, you don't have a book worthy idea, right, if it's not ready.
Yeah.
And so that's where you have to start, is with the book concept. And what happens is sometimes people have a concept and they're ready to write the book right away, they think. But do you have a book is the question. Like before it's book worthy, you have to ask the very first question is this a book?
Is there enough there?
Is there enough, right?
Yeah.
Because you don't want to have that review on Amazon that says, this could have been an article.
Oh, that would hurt. Yeah.
It happens because people thought they had a book and they went ahead and wrote the book, and they kind of like, what else do I say about it? So one of the things that can be very helpful is to just start exploring this earlier before you've committed to an entire book. Start writing it in short form, like try different avenues, have conversations about it with people first who are ideal audience, ideal future readers, because you might have a conversation with a friend, but maybe she's not your ideal reader. So that wouldn't necessarily be the best input for you to make a decision on. Mm-hmm. But still, you can have some conversations. I would say
your mom is probably going to say it's a good idea, right?
But she might not
but
be
she might
my
not be
ideal
a reader.
So even though she loves it, and she will buy it, you'll get one sale.
Yeah, she'll buy it.
But it's not necessarily an indication that a large number of people will buy it and make it worth the financial risk of turning this into a book. Because you have to think about that too. Like whether you self-publish or you find a publisher that's ready to partner with you, whatever path you take, you need to have enough to make it worth that investment. That's what everybody's hoping for, at least, even though most books don't earn out their advance. So
interesting.
We found that out when the publishing houses sat on Capitol Hill and testified to Congress. They're like, yeah, very few earn out their advances. And the percentage is certainly low. It's unbelievable how few people do. So if you don't feel bad. But at the same time, they are hoping somebody will so that they can make their money. And so we have to think that way too. Is this idea interesting enough to make somebody say, I would like to know more? Does it arouse some curiosity? Does it tap into their felt need? Is there going to be enough? Is the promise going to be there? Are you going to deliver on the promise of your book? And that you could translate that into fiction as well. But obviously I'm thinking about nonfiction. So that's kind of a start to that conversation.
Yeah. It really is. I think too, I wonder if you could speak to this, because I think for me personally, there's a hesitancy to share my idea. And maybe it's just kind of a fear of I don't have it all worked out yet. I'm not really sure if this is good. So what are some ways, low risk ways that you might suggest to a writer who maybe is I think I have an idea, but I'm not really sure it's worthy. How are some ways you can kind of test it?
That is all the more reason to start sharing your idea, is to force yourself to articulate it, to force yourself to get past that fear, that self-consciousness. Because if you're going to write a book, you're going to be talking about this for a very long time. You're going to be thinking about this for a very long time. So better to do all this work up front, test this thing early. And I test different ways of saying it. So you do work it out. But I like that you said that you're if I'm not sure what I'm going to say, then test, experiment, try saying it different ways so that it gets out there in a way that is going to help you. It helps a lot of things all at once. It helps you because you're going to get a little bit more used to talking about it. And then you get the information from other people, like, what is she talking about? or
Yeah.
oh, that's interesting, I want to know more. And this can happen, you said low risk ways. I would say things like social media is an obvious one. If you are on, I know some people aren't, but if you are on social media, well, that's like, it's easy. Just write a little
Yeah.
caption. So it's not the whole book. You're not trying to capture the whole book in one thing. I guess you could try just like a good hook, but you are just trying to, maybe it's point 2 of chapter 2 that you were kind of thinking would go, just try that. Are people interested in that? And they're like, okay, they are interested in that. Maybe they would like something from chapter 3. And I would never tell anybody I'm working on a book. I'm thinking about writing a book, and then say something. I would just like test the ideas, let them be a little freestanding thing, one blog post, an article you pitch somewhere, an op-ed, an opinion piece you pitch to a publication. It can be a series of small little social media posts. People are doing this all the time. You would be doing what the experts are doing, or not the experts, but the professional authors. They are testing their ideas all the time, and you just probably haven't realized that's what they're doing. So just start watching your favorite authors. They're probably doing this.
They probably are, and they're probably a little bit more covert about it. Like you said, they're not maybe advertising, I have this book idea, because I think most people are just in the kindness of their hearts are like, yeah, go for it.
Right.
Versus, posing questions, open-ended questions, and seeing what people's responses are to those questions is probably a really good way of testing your idea without, feeling like you're revealing all your cards.
Yeah, you could find a great quote that you were going to put in the book, and then just kind of riff on it in the same way that you would post the quote in a chapter, and then you would comment on it, because we don't have it just sitting there in a book, and then like see how they react to that. They would have no idea that was part of a book. It's just you sharing a quote and then sharing some thoughts about the quote. And then, but if it's integral to some aspect of your book's argument, and thinking nonfiction here, you're building an argument over the course of the chapters to try to deliver the transformation. Then if they're like, I love that quote, that's so well said, or what a great point, and I hadn't thought about it that way. I mean, those are the kinds of clues that if people do engage, the likes, the shares, the comments, like even if you don't tend to get a lot of activity on social media, then even just one thing versus nothing is a signal. Like it's a little hint that something was interesting. Or now we get a lot more, seems like now we're getting a little bit more analytics available to us on social media. So we can kind of look at those and see, was there something, nothing? Now, just because there's nothing doesn't mean it was a flop. Just that packaged in that way on that day, it didn't do as well. Okay, let me try a different way. Let me make a reel with the same type of content just to see if a different format will land. Because maybe it wasn't the idea, it was the way I packaged it. So I think you can, social media, if you're on it, is a great way to just mess around and make it a playground, make it a laboratory, and just try things without, what's the worst can happen? You can even delete it if you don't like it.
Right. And I've noticed, I don't know if any of you ladies on the call have noticed this too, but sometimes I feel like our social media feeds are getting so cluttered with advertisements and things like that you don't always see what your friends are actually saying, which is the whole reason we wanted to do social media in the first place, was to be social. But one thing I've noticed is that sometimes it presents in-person conversations later on. Like somebody might not comment online, but they'll be like, oh, I really liked that post that you did. That was really good. Like I'll hear that later, but I don't always get the interaction sometimes. So it is a great tool to like just start conversations and see where they end up. But you mentioned like the red flag and maybe kind of repackaging some of the ways that you're wording things. What would you say? I mean, even if you're getting some little flickers of interest, maybe, we're not looking for posts to go viral per se. Like we're looking for like interest, feedback, that kind of thing. What would be some things that you would say are like, that might be a red flag. That might be that might indicate your idea is half baked. Like it needs some more time. Do you have any ideas or examples of what might indicate that's the case?
Well, I wouldn't make a decision on one media post, even shipped out in 3 different formats or 4 different formats, just one idea. But if you feel like, oh, there was a flicker of interest, like you said, then I'm gonna maybe try something a little bit bigger. Maybe I would grow it without writing the whole book still. Maybe I will. So I go from social media. I guess I could go to like a newsletter. Let's see how my existing audience reacts to this. Okay, now let me try. Like if you wanted to go a little bit bigger, maybe I could pitch this to maybe give a presentation at my women's Bible study. Maybe they'd let me teach on this if it was appropriate, obviously topic. Maybe I could do a webinar. So you kind of raise the stakes without going all in with the whole 55,000 word book. You're sort of going a little bit more and more, and it forces you to break it down and like, do I have enough here? So part of it is like how people are responding, and the part of it is you figuring out, do I have enough for a book, which you brought up earlier, which is there enough here? Like, oh, this could have been an article. Well, write the article, then write another article and another, or write a series of newsletters, write a series of blog posts, do a series of videos, and see, like, do I have enough to say here? So there are several things. And if the answer is no, like, oh, I have 2 videos and I have nothing more to say, or I only have one example and I don't even know how to research this. I mean, like, you're kind of losing interest yourself already. Those are all some signs that, because part of it is this book idea, is it book worthy? But also, like, am I worthy of this book, in the sense, not that of course you're worthy, but like, do I have enough drive to see this through? Right. Am I interested enough in this topic? Dan Pink says you have to be deeply, deeply interested in it, because you are going to live with it for a long time. And if you go the traditional path and you're sitting here with an idea today, and while you're tuning in, this is at least 2 years, probably 2.5 years, maybe 3 years before your book will come out. Because the average from the point of signing a contract with a traditional publishing house and the date of its release is on average 2 years. Sometimes it's 1.5 years, but they have to allow a lot of time for different things to happen, including editing your book and preparing it, the launch and all of that. And then they have the season where your book will be launched. And so a lot of things are happening, and it's all good things, but it is excruciating when you want to get your book out. And so nobody knows the book exists yet. And you're sitting right here. So if you can't sustain interest for 3+ years, because there's beyond that too, that you have to continue to talk about it, then maybe this isn't the book for you. And that's okay. Like, it's okay to come to that conclusion. Like, I don't really want to live with this that long. I don't really want to talk about this in 3 years, or 4 years, or 5 years. I don't really want to be on a panel talking about this topic in 6 years at some conference about it. These are things to ask yourself. So part of it is like, what could I ask myself that would help me see if I want to write this book? Those are some great things to ask.
I would imagine it would be a kind of a harsh reality check when you're like, like you said, you've done a few reels, you've written a few articles, and you feel kind of done. But what a gift that is at the same time, because you've just saved yourself probably years of heartache.
Can you imagine if you wrote it and you're like, oh, I wish I hadn't written this. I'm so bored. So yes, save yourself the grief. Yes, definitely. Yeah. But I love that. One thing I love about this whole thing is, if you really just look at the whole process we're talking about, is that the testing of it is part of how you determine if you're going to write this book, but also you start to get known for it. There's this neat side benefit, which you were like, I don't like to talk about it that much, but don't you want to be known for it in advance, so that when the book comes out, it makes sense that you were the one to write it, and you didn't have to wait 3 years to help people. Right. Like, that's the thing about all of this, is like, you get to help people now. It's pretty amazing. I love that.
Well, okay, that brings up a question for me, because I think that could be a holdup for some writers, is that they don't feel known for this topic yet. And do you feel like is that something that a new author or beginning author can how important is that you are known for this problem that you solve? Is that just one of the benefits that comes later, or is it something that you feel like people need to know you and know who you are as a writer before you start writing the book, spending years of your life on that topic?
I mean, this is the question, the chicken and the egg, what needs to come
Right.
first here?
Right.
And right now, what we're hearing is that publishers, if you go that path, again, if you're self-publishing, this could be a different conversation. But if I'm just assuming some people are considering that path at least. And if you are, what we're hearing is they want you to bring a ready-made set of buyers, and the ready-made set of buyers are all these people you have earned through your platform building efforts that are where you're viewed as a go-to on this. Does not, by the way, need to be, don't equate social media equals platform. That's just one way to build your platform. There are many ways to build a platform that have nothing to do with social media. But like, okay, your email list or the places you speak regularly, those kinds of things are also part of your platform, and it's positioning you as a go-to on that. And so I would say if you're pursuing traditional publishing, all signs point to you need to come with the sense that you are known for it. And so all the more reason, again, to test this, start to get known for it. Even though you're not talking about a book, you're talking about the ideas that will be in the book. And I interviewed Lucinda Halpern of Lucinda Literary is her literary agency back in 2022. And she said, the more you talk about it, the better, because now I know that you are a go-to on this. Maybe not the go-to, but a go-to. And so I think that effort of being known for it will make the job of pitching and being persuasive that this is a now book and I'm the ideal person to write this way easier to convince somebody of that. Like, okay, yeah, of course she's the one to write it. That makes total sense because she's been working on that. Now, that said, your book and your author brand don't also need to be exactly the same. So your author brand is a bigger umbrella under which other things can fall, or a bigger circle in which other things can fall. And so that's where even though you might not think of yourself as running a business, just think for a minute that the author brand is sort of like your bigger business. And then you can have different things you're selling and doing, services and widgets, if you were a business selling things that fall within that make total sense that, of course, this company would sell these things. So with my author brand, I'm a writing coach. I work with people to develop their book proposals. I have a membership where I help people build their platform. I help people one-to-one with breaking free when they're unstuck, I unstick people who are stuck. Anyway, the point is I help people, coach them in all these different ways. So my bigger umbrella circle is writing coach. And I help them with their books, but maybe somebody just wants to be a stronger writer in their business. So I can help with that too. And some people are book coaches and don't do that. But I can do that, and I can talk about that, and I can offer that because it fits within the bigger brand. So I can talk about book proposals.
It's all kind of brand adjacent to you and what you're
encompassed by it. So my point is your brand, you don't have to only be about the book. Like, let's say you're writing a gardening book about how to build let's see, these are all Christian women, right? So like maybe you have like a garden that's growing things we've read about in the Bible. I don't know, like Bible-based plants for the spring. I don't know. That sounds like an article, not a book, right? It's too narrow.
How to grow your own manna. No, I don't know.
Yeah. Anyway, I was a crazy idea and it's not working. But anyway, you have something about gardening and faith, and you, but it makes sense because you're a master gardener and that's your whole identity and your whole brand. Well, of course it makes sense. And you've been obvious about your faith. Okay, that makes sense that you're writing that book. You could write many books about growing things, working on soil, or whatever other books you want to do. But if you suddenly wrote a cookbook, well, I guess you could actually write a cookbook from the garden. Maybe you're going to write about car mechanics. It doesn't fit anymore because it doesn't make any sense that you've built this incredible brand that's around living things. Maybe it's even broader than gardening. Maybe it's like all living things. I love, things that grow is kind of my bigger brand. And then you've got some room to play in there. So all the way back to your original question is, how important is it that you're known for it? I think it needs to make sense that you would write it, but you don't necessarily have to be right now known for this exact book. But I think it would make sense that you would start to think more consciously about the content you're creating and sharing with the world and the way you interact with people about what you do. I think it would be helpful if you started thinking about what's my bigger circle, my umbrella, so that I'm making a choice that any book that I would write would make sense under that. Because we tend to gravitate to themes, I think, as people. Dani Shapiro wrote a book called Inheritance. And in there, she says, all the books I've ever written, everything I've ever written has been about identity. It's been, whether it's a novel, nonfiction, poetry, essays, whatever it is, it seems like it's always about identity. And I never knew why. I had a great family. I love my parents. It wasn't always easy, a little difficult with some of them with my mom, but like that was all part of it. Then I don't know, I don't want to spoil the book, but in Inheritance, she has a big surprise that she sorts through. And of course, it totally makes sense now that she would have always been curious about identity. And so I think we're naturally drawn to things, and if you can figure that out, now you're on your way to figuring out your brand, your author brand, like the bigger thing that you are known for. And then all the books are going to make so much sense of all the things you ever want to write.
Yeah, I think too, I wonder if anyone who hears all that kind of gets a little bit of analysis paralysis because you kind of can sense that, oh my goodness, like these first decisions are really impactful for the future. And so I wonder, like just in my own experience, that's kind of what I tend to do is I feel like, oh, these are really big monumental decisions. Is this really where I want to invest time? And I think it all kind of circles back to what we've been talking about this whole time. Like, are these the topics? Are these the themes that you can just talk about for years to come? Are you curious enough to keep learning about these topics? And I think if I don't know what you would say to that, but would you think that like that's a good test of like don't get too bogged down in like charting your own course necessarily, but is this the lane that you want to travel down? Does that make sense?
Yeah. It does. I think they're like, don't feel like you're locked into it forever. You can shift. It just means that, you are shifting and you need to be realistic about that shift of how am I going to do that? For example, I was, I don't know if you remember, people still do it, but like where you have like 3 words was how we defined our blog. And so I would put, author, editor, friend. Those were my 3 words for a very long time. Author, editor, friend. And actually I have adjectives or I guess they're adjectives, curious, creative, productive, or what I say at the beginning of my podcast. But anyway, my mentor, the one I mentioned earlier, she's like, you need to drop editor and just drop it all and just be writing coach. And I'm like, am I ready for that? But it was a big enough thing that once I did it, now, like literally like things I did on my website, I was not that smart. I just accidentally connected Ann Kroeker and writing coach in the name of my WordPress blog. And it just like everything I sent out then had Ann Kroeker writing coach. And I didn't really realize from metadata and all that stuff. I didn't know what was going on. I just didn't. I wrote blog posts about writing because I liked to talk about writing and I could talk about it forever, which is a great question to ask yourself. What could I write about? The big thing. What's a big thing I could write about forever? Because I just love it. Yeah. I think like reduce, like, what's the word? Like lower the pressure and just start having fun, because every single thing you create can just be like, I think I'm going to make something. When I finally did that with social media, and we were going through that phase where Instagram, like the 9 squares had to be all pretty and they all had to match and all that stuff. I'm like, it was too much pressure. I can't do that.
And it makes you feel like I don't even want to start because
oh my gosh,
I need to have
I have to think ahead 9 squares.
I know.
But then when I just like, you know what? I think people just want to hear from me, or somebody does. So I'm just going to create something. And I have put out some of the ugliest stuff. I did one recently on envelopes. I don't know if you follow me on social media, but it's like I just pulled out some envelopes and I threw them on this white table, like on my white desk, which is so dumb. White envelopes on white desk. But I got so much interaction on it because people are like, oh, that's a good idea. Because I just use them for note taking and everything, recycling things. So I wrote a little Instagram post about it, and I had the greatest conversation with people. So I think we just all need to relax. Like, just relax. And go, relax. Like, try something. Try something. It's a playground. It's a laboratory. It's more of a playground than a laboratory, I think. And that's where you're going to get, like, just dig some sand and try some things. And if you don't like it, smash it down, just like you would a sandcastle that didn't turn out quite the way you wanted. Well, you tried something and you probably gained some skills along the way, and you figured out what you didn't want to write about, or a new way of saying things, and just keep trying stuff.
I love that. I think we need to say that to each other more often, because I know it just, maybe it's my type A-ness, which is just like, you want it all. just right, but it's okay to experiment and to try new things. Kathy was saying that the analysis paralysis is real when working on a website. Yeah, it's all of those things because it's like, oh, that's forward facing, that's out into the world, and it does
But it's
feel
also
weighty.
But it's also digital, and you can like undo it and delete it and put
That's
something
true.
new there. So like go ahead and get it up there and start gathering information from yourself. Like once you make anything live, and you always think of it differently, but yeah, just start making things. And if you don't like it, delete it and make another one.
Yeah.
I think that would be more important. And I would say the more you can start, like, let's talk about website briefly to say that if you were started writing blog posts, you can call them articles, you can call them anything you want, but like essentially you're using the blog functionality. If you start writing about the thing that you're thinking about becoming a book worthy idea, you are also signaling to search engines now so that they start saying, hey, I wonder what this website's about. This thing, annkroeker.com, I wonder what this is about. And it kept seeing things about commas and platform and writing confidence or whatever, and writing with others. And it was writing. And then Ann Kroeker, writing coach. Oh, it's not a human, but it's trying to figure out what you're about. And every new piece of content you put out, even a page that you update, all of that is information that it's gathering next time it sends the spiders across the interwebs, and it's trying to figure out what you're about. Give it information to help it figure out what you want to be about, and that's going to pay off. And at the same time, you're writing it for a human that you hope will come. They're typing in a question or a query, and they're like, oh, what is a serial comma, or what is the Oxford comma? And I wrote a post about the Oxford comma, and which also is known as a serial comma. And so now hopefully a few people will land on it. And so there are two things happening at the same time. You're getting known for it from search engines and by people, which are obviously most important are the people, but they will not find it if the search engines don't send them there. So
Right.
I would start that process too.
Yeah, I love that. I think too, like I do a little teaching about author branding, and technically the definition of a brand is a shortcut for your brain. And so it's like when we see the golden arches, our brains all collectively know that that's McDonald's, right? There's a shortcut that's just, we don't even read the words. We just know what
Yeah.
that is. And so the same thing is like you are becoming known for that problem that you're solving. There's that shortcut. It's like, oh, how do I use the comma again? Well, oh, Ann said something about this. I'm going to go look her up and see, so sometimes it's an intentional seeking and finding, and other times it's an accidental. But either way, you're
Yeah.
kind of being connected to that
Yeah.
problem that you're
Yes.
solving.
Yes. And yeah. And you know what they say about platform is sort of like about when's the best time to plant a tree 20 years ago, and the second best time to plant a tree is today. I think anything, all the platform efforts you might do starting now to move toward exploring this idea, and it fits within the brand and all of that, just start and stop overthinking it, Cara. Stop
I
being type
know.
A. Just
I
start
need
making
that.
things.
Oh, my writer's block friends, you guys can remind me of that. Stop it.
It's more important to ship it. Obviously read it out loud and make sure you catch typos and things, because I let typos go out. But guess what? It's digital, so you can go in and fix the typo. But anyway, yeah, I think it's more important to just get the silly picture with the envelopes out there to start talking about productivity and saving money or whatever that topic was. So
Yeah, that's so good. You've talked a couple times about like traditional versus self-publishing, and maybe, I'm sure in your coaching work, you talk about that topic a lot. How does that connect really to your idea? And that we're talking about book-worthy ideas. Do you think that there's some ideas that are like, oh, I think that's a great idea. I think it's a better fit for self-publishing versus traditional. Like, where does that play into the factoring of your decisions and moving
yeah.
forward or not?
Okay. It's a very, very personal decision that every writer is going to have to just figure out on their own or with a trusted advisor. And they have to understand how the publishing business works. So I would say educate yourself so you can start to make the decision with an informed decision. So you understand how this works versus self-publishing. And I think you have to understand yourself. Am I able to think like an entrepreneur? to some extent, not like, not in any fancy way, but just like, am I willing to think about this project, to see it through all the way from ideation, which is where we're at right now with the idea, all the way to launch and future marketing? Can I think like that? Because like, it's one thing to just get a book up on Amazon and hope for the best, and another to have a real plan from beginning to end that includes, you're going to have to, you're self-publishing, you're the publisher, you're going to have to hire your own whatever designer, interior designer, or by the programs that do it, and so on. So, or am I going to try to jump through all the hoops to try to land a traditional publishing deal? Either way, one of the big ways to decide between that is who's taking the financial risk. So you have to think about that. How am I going to fund it over here myself? Or, of course, the traditional publishing, they pay you and they make a book. So it's, that in that way, that's kind of nice to get paid, and you don't have to give that back if you fulfill your part of the contract. And then you have a book that you hope sells well. But if your book has to go out quickly because of maybe for things going on in the world that you need your book to get out there faster than 3 years from now or 2 years from now, you might want to think about self-publishing and learning everything you can and learn how to do a great job with your launch. So timeliness would be one thing. If you're going to build a whole business around it, you might think about doing some of that, controlling some of that yourself, so that you can just pluck from your book for all kinds of things. And then the book is fully yours. You own all of it, because you do surrender some of the rights to how your book goes into the world to the publishing house. That's part of the partnership and the arrangement, is that they are going to control some of the rights to it. So if that's really important to you, that would be an early conversation you'd want to have. But a lot of people want to try traditional publishing first before they switch over. So that's why they're going to have to think about having a lot of ducks in a row lined up and be in the best position possible to hear yes. So I think I would just have to have that conversation with each person one-to-one to talk about what they value, what they need, what this book needs, and how to best position it for the best path for that. But I interviewed Janir Trump, and I still have to actually edit the half of the conversation. She is a hybrid author now, which is different from hybrid publishing. So hybrid publishing is its own thing. She's a hybrid author in the sense that she has been traditionally published and she has self-published. So therefore she has books that are both presented or created in both ways. She went bananas. She loves self-publishing, even though she had multiple books traditionally published. She is loving the outcome. And one of them is, now she's writing novels. These are novels that she's writing. She's making more money as a self-published author. That doesn't always happen, and it seems to work best for novelists or nonfiction authors with already existing platforms, because they're they're selling to their list, the people on their email list. They're letting them know about this book, and people are going to buy it. So that works best. Self-publishing can work best for that situation. But then that chicken and the egg conversation we were talking about, like, do I have to have a platform before I sell the book, or could the book help me build the platform or connect me to the idea? We talked about that earlier, didn't we? Yeah, I think that's where self-publishing could be maybe a way to launch you with this idea. But now you're really going to have to dig in and do an incredible job marketing it, because now it's the thing you're going to use to try to land speaking engagements and start to get on stages, so to speak, whether that's virtual or otherwise. So anyway, those are some, I don't know, that was very scattered and not very organized.
It's a complicated thing. And I think there's a matrix that you have to kind of work through to figure out, like, who are you? You got to know yourself. You got to know your goals, know your project, all of those things to take into account to make that best decision. I know it's just one of those questions we writers love to toss around, like which is best, but I think it just depends on a lot
per project, per person. Yeah. And also, once you publish, if you can't move a lot of product, as they might say, if you can't move a lot of product, it's going to be hard to land a traditional deal. If they see that you self-publish, it doesn't mean they will say no, but if they see that they actually use this term, dismal sales. Isn't that depressing? Why do they say that?
That's a pretty harsh word.
So if you've never published before and you're thinking about traditional, that might be a reason to explore that path, because they don't know. Maybe you will, maybe you won't. So that's why when you
Yeah.
come with a platform, that's the signal that maybe, oh, look, she's got this many people on her list, and she has these people are following her on social media or showing up at her events. So she might be somebody to take a risk with, because we
Yeah.
don't know yet. But if they know, if they can see how many books are sold, it's like, yeah, I don't know. She didn't sell very many of that book. So that's where you kind of think about the first book that you release. What do you want for that book and for those readers? And then how will that position you for future books too? So I think we're getting off topic a little bit, but I don't know, that came to my mind
No,
based on what you were
I
asking.
appreciate it. I think you had said earlier, you kind of have to start thinking like a business owner. You're kind of the business owner of your brand in a sense. I think maybe as writers we might bristle at that. A lot of us feel our writing is ministry, and I think it is, and it can be. But yeah, you do have to kind of think numbers, think metrics sometimes when it comes to making those decisions, and like what are your strengths and
Yeah.
weaknesses, and all of those things factor in.
Well, this is what somebody told me very early in my career, and it's somebody who ended up being instrumental in getting me publishing deals. It was our first meeting. I didn't have a book yet, and we were sitting around at a sushi restaurant. It was my first experience with sushi. You don't want to have sushi your first time when you have an incredibly
Yeah.
pivotal decision in your life
Right. Those
on the
are
line.
big stakes. Yeah.
Yeah, they're all like eating it because I'm the one presenting. Anyway, I'm pitching my book. And at the end of the conversation, this person asked, are you willing to speak on this? This is a long time ago. There were no virtual options and so on. And I, mid bite with my sushi with soy sauce dripping down my arm, I'm like, I know the answer should be yes, but I don't want to speak. I don't have any experience speaking. I had little kids. I couldn't imagine like all that would be entailed with picking up and leaving for a weekend or all that. Said as honestly and optimistically as possible that I hadn't yet, but I had friends who were speakers. I'm sure I could figure it out. And he said, well, first of all, we do find that the people who do go out and speak are the ones who sell books. And now we have many other avenues to sell books. That's not, now they love podcast appearances like this one. Anyway, back to the book. He did say this, and this has stuck with me. He said, that same impulse that caused you to want to write this down in book form, like, why not share that in spoken form? And we could, what is the word, extrapolate that now and say, why not in any form? Like, what was it that caused us to want to write this down as a book? Why can't that be our message that we are stewarding in as many ways as possible?
Yeah,
And
absolutely.
so, to that end, in terms of being the go-to and being like a little bit nervous about being known because it's ministry, I want to elevate Jesus. Well, of course you do, because you have a message you want to get into people's hands, to elevate it. They have to learn about it. They have to know about it. And so if you cared about the message in the first place, like these are all ways of just getting it in front of people that you care about, that you want to see them read this and be changed. So if you can
Yeah.
reframe it a little bit that way, I
Yeah.
think it
Think
can
about
help.
it a little differently. Yeah. How will they, what is the verse? How will they know if they've not heard? And how will they hear if
Yeah.
someone doesn't go and tell
Yeah.
them it's the same idea?
Yeah.
Well, I want to be mindful of the time, and all these ladies have been so patient. So, wanted to give you guys an opportunity if you had any questions for Anne. She's going to teach us on Thursday a little bit more. We'll talk about that in just a second. But if you guys have any questions for comments,
I have one. So you talk about writing about something that you're interested in to see if it should become a book. How do you feel about taking a series that you've written or that you're writing and polishing up a little bit more, maybe expanding on the specific chapters or blog posts to make them more of a chapter or a bigger devotional, and putting that content into a book?
And would this be self-published or traditionally published?
The other ones that I've kind of done, well, I've only done one like that, and I did it self-publishing. It's an either or at this point. I've got too many irons in the fires to really actually do it right now, but I'm trying to still be consistent in the blog posting as I'm working on the other projects.
Yeah.
So,
And so this is nonfiction, it sounds like, because you said
so
devotional.
yes, I mean, I have a novel I'm 50,000 words into, but I'm also, a devotional writer, and I'm writing on the Beatitudes, not Beatitudes that are in Matthew 5, but attitudes about how we're supposed to be in Christ rather than what we're supposed to do. So, I mean, I have like 65 or 70 topics, and I'm probably 25 or 30 in as far as blog posts go. Yeah. So eventually I'm considering self-publishing it probably as in book format. Do I need to take it down off the blog once I publish it?
Yeah. So the reason I ask about traditional versus self with that is that you can do whatever you want. You can do whatever you want with self-publishing. In fact, some people say that you can actually leave it up and they can go, even though they can go read it on your website, they still love to have a book version of it. So at the end of every one of those blog posts, would you like the book? Here's the link to go get it. And you wherever you're selling it, they can go to that. So some people say that. Some people would say that a traditional publisher will say, okay, how are those blog posts? No, not necessarily, but like, how are they performing? Like, are people, tell me about how many hits you're getting on that blog post. Are people reacting and responding to it? And that's part of what could go into your book proposal. If you were trying to pitch that, they would want to know, like, well, this sounds interesting, but are people actually reading it? Are they already interested? Then that would be a good sign. That would be a signal for them. Like, okay. So then they would want some of it to be special for the book. So maybe they would want you to take it down. Maybe they wouldn't. It probably depends on the publishing house, the publisher, but they would still want some special stuff for the book. And then I would say the only other concern, because it's a devotional, maybe this wouldn't be an issue because it's, I assume maybe a traditional devotional with fewer words and more things for them to write. But I would say caution against adding fluff just to make it a book. Sure. But if what's there is expanding on it, giving them a deeper, richer understanding with going deeper, now that's stuff for a book then. Like things you didn't have time for in a blog post. It was just, here's this idea. Here's a little bit about the idea. Here's the conclusion. Like that's not a chapter. You're right. But like, yeah, you could group some things, reorganize them. I would caution against just recycling, but I would definitely, that sounds like a great starting point. And the fact that you already wrote them. Yeah, for sure. And if you're going to self-publish, I was just reading from, somebody was suggesting on an email just today, they were saying short things sell on Amazon if you don't mind being on Amazon. Short books sell. So don't be afraid of it being short too. So that was an interesting thought that I hadn't given a lot of thought, but thank you for asking.
Thank you.
Base asked a question. She said, do you have any suggestions for landing speaking opportunities?
Yes, you would be surprised how many places are interested in having speakers. So assuming it's nonfiction, is it nonfiction? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. And
I think she said yes.
Yeah. So if you can come up with a slant, an angle that would be interesting to a certain audience, then you can pitch a lot of different things. Just as an example, Dr. Sandra Dalton, I'm forgetting her hyphenated name. You guys know her, right? Anyway, she wrote a book on rest. It's super famous. It's super well known, super widely known. She's been on huge stages, but she speaks anywhere. And she has been selling to, talking about rest in the marketplace. Like she's talking to small, mid-sized companies, big companies, like they want training, like lunch and learns for their employees. So you could even pitch, like you probably know people at your church who own a small business or medium-sized business where they don't have a lot of red tape. If it's a giant corporation, they have a lot of red tape. But if it's a mid-sized company, maybe you could find an angle where you could take some idea in it and then spin it at companies. You can go to your library and find a way. Of course, you're going to have to drop some of the faith elements, but you could bring some core idea to libraries. Churches, they don't have to draw a big circle about how far you're going to drive and then pitch every library, certainly every library in your library, whatever you'd call it, district, because sometimes there's one over here and one over there, smaller ones, and pitch all of them, each one of them, and then go beyond that. And if you've got an idea that you think people who go to libraries would like, which is like a lot of people, then you could do that. All churches do the same with churches, do all women's ministries and pitch. And you can get creative in what you pitch. Like maybe you're not trying to come in and be their major retreat speaker. Maybe you're just coming in to do something for their weekly gathering to talk about something related to that. You might be surprised. They love to have that. And so to do that, it helps to have a speaking page on your website and have yourself speaking, have some indication that you can speak. So it doesn't have to be an amazing sizzle reel like a keynote speaker would put together, but maybe a little thing you link together showing you in a couple of different things, even just photos, and then podcast appearances, things like that. And that would be the last idea, is like, do podcast appearances as often as you can. Pitch yourself to podcasters. Do you have a training in Writers Bloc on that? On pitching yourself to podcasters?
We do. Yeah, we do.
Yeah, go watch that and follow every step, and then pitch yourself to as many podcasts as you can, because now you're practicing speaking, talking like we are right now. And that would be great to be able to then, when you're pitching in an email pitch, you can link out to the ones that you felt like turned out the best. And then they have a chance to taste test that as well. Are those ideas that you think you could do, Space?
Well, the first one kind of cracks me up because I am the local business owner in my church, and I'm a single person operation because I don't want to have a crew of people. So I've let myself get as big as I can handle by myself. So I'm like, that's kind of a funny thought, like sitting there speaking to myself. And I think knowing myself, I'm way like I couldn't speak without speaking about Jesus. Like that's just not even like I wouldn't have a message. But
there are Christian companies. They love to bring them in. They love to bring in the Christian speakers, and they feed them lunch, and then they make them listen to some Christian speaker.
Yeah. But that's kind of the thing too, right? Is like, I actually, because I'm a business owner and my message is completely slanted towards Christ, that actually I could potentially use that as an opportunity. Like I could use my business owner status also, but I was just thinking about the idea of just speaking it at local women's gatherings and stuff. And I always daydream about having friends that are more gifted in the managerial. Like when I think about spiritual gifts, that is, I think I'm in the negative on that one, which is funny for somebody that has had to learn to manage a business. And I think that's part of why God gave me this business, was because he wanted to grow me in all the ways that I was very deficient. But that kind of spun my head in that thinking too, of like,
that's
what
great.
did I do? Develop Space Cadet soaps. What did I like? What are like, the crossovers between that and developing an audience? I've probably thought a lot about that sort of thing over the years.
Another thing, something that could help you. Sorry, I didn't know I was overlapping. Sorry,
okay.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. I was just saying it makes me want to keep think that thought process all the way to the end. So what were you about to say, Ann?
Well, you got me thinking you would be a perfect candidate if you're willing to try something new. And like, clearly you just said you were, that you went in the direction that God led. What about starting doing exactly what we're doing right here, but just like start a podcast, but make sure it's video. Because if you do an audio only podcast, discoverability is hard. It's hard for people to find find episodes. They can look on Google and Google might deliver it to them. But if you have a YouTube, people are looking on YouTube for everything. You would be amazed. Like everybody, old people, young people, everything in between with weird, they want to find out about everything from warts to Bible studies. Everything they're looking on YouTube. And so you could start a podcast of your own, like you hosting down the road. Doesn't have to be now. I would guest first to get used to it, get your microphone, get your lighting and all that kind of stuff. But then make sure you've got a video version of it that you throw up on YouTube. It doesn't even have to be fancy editing. You don't need a fancy studio. Those days are gone, like the 9 square fancy on Instagram. That's gone too. And so and you could practice also short form, like just create some little reels and stuff just to practice getting on camera and talking. But anyway, you could do that. And then you would become discoverable on YouTube. And then, of course, you'll have the audio version too. Easy peasy. You just throw it out. Now you have an audio version too. That would be a great way to practice speaking and to become discoverable for your business, for your speaking, for your topic, for your book idea, all of it.
Yeah, that's a great idea. I think YouTube is the second largest search engine. Like we don't always think of it as we think of Google alone, but people are always searching things on YouTube.
It is, and it's owned by Google.
Yeah, funny how that works. Yeah. Well, Ann, tell us a little bit about what you're going to be teaching us on Thursday.
On Thursday, we're going to expand and be a little more focused than maybe this conversation sprawled more in a fun way. But the one on Thursday is still by the same title. Is your idea book-worthy? So we're going to talk more specifically with clearer path on how you can discover how you and your idea are book-worthy, or whether or not it is. And so you'll hear some of the same things that we talked about here, but I have slide deck all worked up for you, and we're gonna talk about that in depth.
That sounds great. And just for those who might be listening, this is going to be a teaching that is within the Writers Bloc community in the premium version. So if you are interested in joining the Writers Bloc and taking advantage of our wealth of resources, including some of those trainings Ann asked about earlier, they're all there. So you can join the Writers Bloc premium community to get access to Ann's teaching and many, many others. Yeah, so thank you. This has been such a fun, maybe a little all over the place conversation, but I really enjoyed it. I think a lot of these topics are all kind of connected. They all kind of find their roots and their genesis in this idea of is your idea book worthy? So I think it's been, I hope, helpful for those who have been listening. So thank you, Ann, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Right.
Thanks so much.
See you on Thursday.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.